bienvenidos todos. Nos da muchísimo gusto que nos acompañen, contar con ustedes y celebrar la vida intensamente a pesar de los grandes retos que estamos enfrentando en nuestro país, en nuestro mundo. Y a veces importante recordar la simplicidad de verdad de esos elementos que hacen nuestra vida importante y valiosa a pesar de las dificultades. Y bueno, mi nombre es Arlen Solodkin, para quienes no me conocen, soy directora del Instituto de Bienestar Integral, presidenta de la Sociedad Mexicana de Psicología Positiva y profesora del Certificado en Estudios de la Felicidad. He trabajado con el doctor Tal Ben-Shahar por muchos años y me da muchísimo gusto pues darles la bienvenida a todos ustedes y darle la bienvenida a Tal. Tal, is such an honor to have you here with us. Um, Tal, para los que, bueno, muchos ya lo conocen, muchos de ustedes, pero Tal Ben-Shahar fue el profesor que impartió el curso más popular en la historia de la Universidad de Harvard. Es el creador de Happiness Studies Academy y Potential Life, unas organizaciones que de diferentes maneras buscan propagar la felicidad en las organizaciones y entre los líderes. Y Tal es la cabeza y el corazón detrás del certificado en estudios de la felicidad, después de un brinco muy grande para poder crear la primer maestría en estudios de la felicidad, y después dio otro brinco todavía más grande, desafiando pues ahora sí que muchas creencias, muchas diferentes ideas acerca de qué es lo que se enseña en un doctorado, y abrió ni más ni menos que el primer doctorado en el mundo sobre felicidad, en el que participan también personas de todo el mundo. Y bueno, es autor de muchos bestsellers y es un honor de verdad tenerlo aquí. Tal, is such a great honor to have you here. I was sharing that you are the mind and the heart behind all the field of happiness studies, including the master's, the PhD, and the certificate program. And today we're going to be able to pick a little bit, uh, ask you some questions about how you think, how you process information, how you see life these days and the world. And thank you again very much for accepting this invitation.
Thank you, Arlene. It's an honor and real pleasure to be here with you all tonight.
Thank you. So, para los que están aquí que necesitan interpretación, si se van al mundito en el menú, pueden elegir la interpretación en español. Le agradezco mucho a Iván por hacer esta traducción. Yo voy a estar hablando en inglés y si quieren escuchar español, elijan español. So, Tal, I would like to ask you if we start by thinking about your interest in happiness. I would like to ask you if there was a moment in your life when your understanding about happiness fundamentally changed.
Yeah. So, for a long time, I wasn't really concerned about happiness in the sense that most people understand it today, because what I was mostly interested in was success. So I was, from the time I remember myself, I was very ambitious, extremely competitive. I was always a hard worker, whether it was in sports or in school. And for me, the good life meant the successful life. And success was defined traditionally, meaning do well in school, do well in sports, later on set yourself up to do well at work, and everything was geared towards that. And then at a certain point, when I was in my early teens, I started to notice that something was off. Specifically, it was a sense of discomfort or dis-ease, which I felt most of the time. And it was, today I know that it's stress, but it was certain, like I felt constricted here. I wasn't breathing smoothly, or I felt, a pain in my belly. And I noticed that it was associated with imperfection.
Mm,
Meaning every time when I was playing squash then, squash was the main thing that I was doing. Every time practice didn't go as well as I'd hoped, I felt stress. Every time I didn't do as well as I wanted to do in a tournament, I felt stressed. Before a tournament, I would feel that too.
mm,
So it was almost constant.
mm,
But I always said to myself, and then I was already using the word happiness. I always said to myself, that's okay. I'm not happy now. I'm, stressed. I'm feeling pressure. But when I become the champion of my country, I was living in Israel then, when I become the champion of Israel, then I'll be happy. And, and I got better and I improved because I was a very hard working squash player. And I got close. And eventually, when I was 16, I won the national championship, becoming the youngest winner of that tournament. And Arlene, I can't even tell you how happy I was then. I Tears of joy erupted. I thought finally I made it. So I'd been training for this tournament for 5 years, knowing that when I win it, I will be happy. And I was happy. My dream came true. And I went out with my friends and family, and we celebrated. And of course, my parents were happy, my friends were happy, and then I came home very late at night, sat on my bed, and suddenly, out of nowhere, the exact same feeling that I have had for the past 5 years returned. The same pressure, the same stress, the same constriction in my throat, the same knot in my stomach returned, and I couldn't understand it. How come? I fulfilled my dream. I did what I
mm,
said I would do. And then a thought came to mind, which was, I'm still not happy. I would need to win the world championship to really be happy.
mm,
And I went back to step one in terms of my feeling, in terms of my training. Again, focused on becoming the world's best player. I turned professional a few months later, lived in England, and again, not happy, stressed, feeling that pain, but saying to myself, when I become
mm,
the world champion, then I'll be happy. Fast forward a few years, I did improve. I got a lot better. I played professionally, didn't become the world champion, but did get injured.
mm,
Injured to the point of not being able to play again. And then I said, okay, I can't play professional squash, which was devastating for me because I thought this was my path to happiness. I said, okay, I'll shift that focus to academia. And I said, okay, I'm going to get into Harvard. And I got into Harvard and I was very happy. And I thought, okay, now I can finally be happy. But again, only for a few hours. Or
mm,
actually, there was a few days. And then again, the same stress. And it came back again and again. And then in my second year at Harvard, I realized the problem was not my achievement or lack of achievement. The problem was psychological.
mm,
And at that time, I was studying computer science. And I changed my focus. And instead of continuing computer science, I moved to philosophy and psychology with a simple question: why aren't I happy? And a second question: how can I become happier?
mm,
Because I realized that the issue was not external. I could have won the world championship. I could have won the universe championship. I could have become Miss Universe. I still wouldn't have been happy because it wasn't about the external, it was about the internal. And that's when my love affair with psychology started.
Wow. And how do you deal with ambition now? Because I know you are still ambitious. You have, the master's program. I know it took you many, many, many years to finally, being able to create it. And then you had this idea about the PhD. So you are ambitious. And I know you are very persistent. So how did that change? How do you manage
Yeah.
ambition and that drive that you have
Yeah.
in a healthier way?
Um, because today I understand what it takes to be happy or to be happier. It's not the end goal. Again, it doesn't matter. Achieving the or winning the championship didn't make me happy for a long
Mhm.
time. That's not the secret. Getting an MA out there, that's not the secret, or a PhD, or any other thing, whether it's a lot of money or a lot of fame or a lot of success in whatever area matters to us. That in and of itself is not the path to the secret to happiness. What is it? It's finding a goal that is meaningful to us, something that matters to us. And again, that could be winning a sports tournament, or it could be starting a program. But it has to be something that is meaningful to us, and it has to lead to meaningful work day in and day out. So I'll give you an example. Today I taught a webinar as part of the certificate program. For an hour and a half, 90 minutes. I do this every Thursday. And with the students, or we call them fellow journeyers, we talked about different topics. We talked about how we were going to make the world a better place and what programs they were going to run in their hometown or in their country. We we talked about the parent-child relationship and how a relationship with a child can can get better. We read a poem together, a beautiful poem, and talked about how struggle is part of life and how it's necessary for growth. That was a meaningful conversation for me. I was very happy doing it, and I'm happy talking about it now, reflecting on it. And before I go to bed, I'm going to write down the things that I'm grateful for.
Mhm.
And I'm going to write down that I'm grateful for the conversation I had with my fellow journeyers. And I'm also going to write down that I'm grateful for what we're doing right now. So, doing what is meaningful for us day in and day out, not just in 5 years when I fulfill my goal, not postponing meaning and purpose, but learning to find meaning and purpose in the journey, in the day to day. That's the essence of happiness.
Yeah, beautiful. And we sometimes forget on a daily basis. We think that it's when you finish writing the book, when you finish uh, doing whatever uh, goal you have, but it's the daily habits. As you talk a lot about habits, so it's about yeah, it's about the daily habits that you have every day.
Arlene, you mentioned finishing a book. So for the past 3 years, I've been working on a project, which is to create an anthology, a collection of poems, a second collection of short stories, and a third collection of essays around happiness. A 3 year project. Now, if I had the mindset that I had when I was, 15, so 40 years ago, if I had that mindset, I would have said to myself, okay, this is so stressful. I have to read so many books. I have to analyze so many poems. I have to find just the right poem for or poems for the anthology. But when I complete it, when I see the end product, then I'll be happy. Not the path to happiness.
Mhm.
Instead, the 3 years were, hard work. Again, I am ambitious. I work very hard. I wake up early in the morning. I do my work day in and day out. 3 years I worked on this. And I was so excited about reading poetry and reading essays. And that was enjoyable for me. It was meaningful to me. Now, that doesn't mean, don't get me wrong, that doesn't mean that every day when I would wake up, I said, "Oh, I'm so glad I'm now going to work for the next 5 hours." There were days when I woke up and I wanted to go back to bed
Mhm.
or watch a movie or procrastinate. But this is where the goal, the ambitious, meaningful goal comes in. It got me out of bed day in and day out. And even if I started and didn't feel like doing it, almost always within 5 minutes or 1 hour, I was into it. And then experiencing meaning and
Mhm.
purpose as I'm doing it.
Yeah. Thank you, Tal. And I have a question about, what question about happiness or about a specific other topic are you asking yourself now that you were not asking yourself maybe 20 years ago?
Yeah, so there are a few, and I'm going to say something which is obvious because I think it's on all of our minds, and that is, how are we going to manage our personal happiness, our children's happiness, our generation, the next generation, in face of technological development?
Mhm.
The book The Anxious Generation by John
Mhm.
Haidt, which I know was translated into Spanish recently, talks about the very troubling state of affairs when it comes to teenagers, that they are more anxious, more depressed, more likely to commit suicide, less happy, of course. And it's troubling. And it's also troubling given what we're facing now with the onset of AI, artificial, artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
Because what it's doing is taking away a very important aspect of being human and therefore of happiness. I was, again, in our webinar today, we were talking about this, how, let's say I was a 15-year-old back in the 80s, which I was. And I was, let's say I was struggling socially at school. What I would do, or what I could do, is write in my journal, which, by the way, I did growing up. And I would write about it, and I would spend a day, or maybe 2 days, or maybe a week writing in my journal, struggling, maybe talking to my parents about it. And maybe after a week or 2 weeks, I would come up with a solution. Okay, this is what I'm going to do in the next, social situation, or this
Mhm.
is what I would create a sense of coherence for myself, better understanding. What if I'm a 15-year-old today? I go on ChatGPT or Gemini and I ask them, and they give me solutions. And maybe the solution is the same solution that I would have come up with after a week or 2 weeks. But there is a very big difference. In the 1980s, I would have digested it, processed it,
Mhm.
gone through a process, struggled with it. Whereas today, I would have just been given the end product. No struggle, no process, and hence long term, no growth.
Mhm.
We need to go through the process. There is a natural evolution when it comes to growth. And if we skip that, and today with technology, we can skip a lot of it, that's a problem.
So what if you were the principal of a school or the principal of a university, how would you manage to to deal with this challenge?
Yeah.
Would you avoid technology? Would you use it with critical thinking, or what would be the way to go about
Yeah.
it?
Um, Look, obviously, I've thought about this a lot, and yet I'm no expert on this.
Mm-hmm.
So let me share with you what I would do. So yes, I would have classes in technology where I would teach kids uh, maybe coding, how to use AI, so that they're not left behind because the future world is going to use it, whether we like it or not. I would have it, let's say, 1 hour a day. For the remaining 5 hours, I would go back to the 19th century, not 20th century, 19th century. Writing by hand, reading actual books, committing things to memory. I would go old school,
Mm-hmm.
studying the ancient texts, the great works, whether it's Aristotle or Marquez. So I would also look at, 20th century, but I would look at the great works, poetry. Yes, I would probably have a class on movies or plays. So you would use technology there. But in general, go back to basics. I would have a garden in my school where the kids would grow vegetables, where they would work the land. Go back to basics. There'd be a lot of physical activity in that school, whether it's working the land or doing different kinds of sports. So I would delimit, create a boundary around the use of technology. By the way, this is what I do as a parent.
Mm-hmm.
My kids can't be on the phone all the time. They can't go to bed with the phone. Because technology in and of itself is not bad. It becomes problematic when it's abused, or rather when it abuses us. So put these boundaries on the use of technology and go back to basics.
Perfect. So I know some people would like to ask you also, they have this opportunity to ask you some questions. So I would like to um, only add one additional question on my behalf, which is in this stage of your life, what feels most important to you? It can be not only professional, but personal.
Yeah. Um, so it's both. It's personal and professional. The one important thing for me is to spend a lot of time with my family and friends. It has always given me a lot of joy. It gives me even more joy today. The second thing, it's to do what I'm doing, and that is teach. To teach, and the reason also why I created the certificate, the master's, and the PhD programs is to help others become teachers, educators.
Mm-hmm.
So it's to not to pay it forward, but rather to serve it forward.
Perfect. So I invite all of you to, ask any questions you have for Dr. Tal Ben-Shahar. This is a unique opportunity. I know Lupita is doing like this. So after Lupita, Joad, but Lupita Ramirez, please. We cannot hear because, or Tal, are you hearing Ivan?
No,
No.
I'm not.
Okay, let me
Okay.
if you want to go with another one and I'll get my
No,
headphones.
no, no, ahora ya te podemos escuchar.
Okay, maybe I was a little bit away
Yes.
from my laptop. Um, I was curious what you were talking about in the beginning, if about the big purpose and the daily meaning things that we can do. Is it what Viktor Frankl talks about the purpose in capital letters and the purpose with lowercase letters?
Yeah, very good. Thank you, Lupita, for the question. Exactly that. So Viktor Frankl talks about the big purpose and the small purpose, or the big meaning, capital M, or the small meaning, small m. So the big meaning, the big purpose is, what is your life about? And for many people, it's God, or it's ending poverty, or family. And it's important to have that overarching goal. At the same time, it's also important to have your daily goals that are meaningful, that are important to you. Because the big goals direct us, but they cannot give us a sense of direction, in other words. So I knew for 3 years when I had this big goal of creating the anthologies, I knew what I was going to do every day. But I had to find that everyday sense of meaning and purpose, the enjoyment from the journey, which is the small m. So, for example, when I would read a poem and get really excited about it, that's a small m meaning, but it was meaningful to me. And that is what sustains hard work. That is what sustains action. Thank you for making that distinction. Viktor Frankl would have approved.
Thank you, Tal. Joad, por favor.
Gracias. Hi, Tal. It's good to see you again. I remember seeing you when I was a MAP student. You came to our movie to there. I had more of a personal question, but it's in regards to the example that you gave with when you, for example, because you gave two examples, but the one that you said where you wanted to become the squash national champion and you worked 5 years or a number of years in order to then achieve that which you ended up achieving. All that work that you did in between, do you feel that at that point, because in and of itself, wanting to become the squash champion, national champion, as you said, is a meaningful thing. It could be a very meaningful thing. And I can tell from what you're saying, it was a very meaningful thing
Very.
for you. And to accomplish it, of course, very meaningful. Do you feel that in and day out training that you did was not meaningful? Like, what do you feel that experience was for you? Because I do agree with everything you're saying, but I'm curious as to how did that translate for you?
Yeah. So the day in and day out was had the element of the big M meaning because it was targeted towards the goal, but I fooled myself again, not because most people fool themselves in our world today. I fooled myself into thinking that when I get it, I will be happy. And I paid the price because not only did I give up a lot as a child, and again, some of it I would do over again, no difference. But I wasn't able to, I didn't learn to enjoy the process.
Understood.
So I'll give you an example. So at the age of, after winning the national championship, in order to continue improving, I left for England. And in, uh, in England, I joined a professional team and I played there and I played tournaments. But the only thing that I thought about was how can I have the perfect training session? Um, Creating relationships wasn't that important for me then. Learning to appreciate what I did every day wasn't that important for me. I didn't spend time with people. I didn't go and see beautiful places. Museums didn't interest me. Reading didn't interest me unless it was geared towards squash. Now, it's okay to be focused. It's okay to be single-minded if that one thing does provide you joy along the journey. It didn't provide me joy. It provided me stress.
Got it. Thank you. I appreciate you sharing that. I don't want to take more time, but it's very relevant as I have a freshman son that is now running in college, and I can see a lot of what you're seeing, what you're talking. So it's incredibly helpful as a parent to hear this.
Yeah. Joad, I don't usually recommend my books, but I will
Please do.
recommend a
Please do.
specific book. My book, Happier,
Mhm.
describes this journey and very much describes my experience as a student. And I think your son may be able to relate to
I
that.
appreciate it. Thank you very much. I took note. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jaime, por favor.
¿Puedo hacer la pregunta en español?
Sí,
Listo.
adelante.
Yo precisamente soy de Colombia, acá hacemos unas mediciones en felicidad organizacional y gran parte de los resultados que han salido es el tema de soledad en las empresas. Impresionante y ha impactado mucho lo que es la felicidad. ¿Paro o puedo pues seguir?
Sigue.
Listo. Pensé que traducción. Entonces, quería preguntarte, dentro de las mediciones, la soledad a veces estamos en empresas viéndola como un indicador, un KPI o para tomar acción, pero siento personalmente que cuando se convierte en un KPI, ya le metemos un objetivo organizacional y posiblemente se disminuye el propósito loable de el trabajar el bienestar y felicidad dentro de las empresas. ¿Cómo recomiendas abordarlo? ¿Crear un KPI, un indicador, o mejor dejarlo con cultura, pero al mismo tiempo cómo incentivar la parte organizacional?
Yeah. So Jaime, loneliness is a pandemic. So it's a pandemic that is leading to mental dis-ease. It's leading to physical dis-ease, and it's hurting performance at work. So alleviating loneliness, finding the antidote to that is obviously very important. Now, whether you measure loneliness or you measure the upside of it, which the antidote to it, which is relationships. One of the measures, one of the most powerful measures for organizational success is called the Q12. If you go online and you type Q12 Gallup, you will find that questionnaire. And what they look at is relationships in the organization. Now, you're not measuring loneliness, but you can be sure that if your Q12 score is low, there is loneliness in the organization, and vice versa. If there is loneliness in the organization, that will lead to a relatively low Q12 score. So I would go with, one of the tried and tested measurements. And again, the Gallup one is an excellent one that specifically also looks at relationships. Now, having said that, it doesn't matter that much what you measure. What's important is that you measure. Why? Because what measurements does is it raises levels of awareness. So when you get the high levels of loneliness score, what you basically are starting is a conversation in the organization. that raises levels of awareness about what can we do about it? How can we get people to interact more? How can we get them to spend more time together? How can we maybe create more social events in the workplace? You're having an important conversation. If you administer the Q12 or the job satisfaction scale or subjective well-being scale, it doesn't matter. Whatever you administer, you begin a conversation. So we need to understand that the measure in and of itself is a means towards an end. It's a step in a much longer journey. An important one, but it's just one step. And therefore, when I enter an organization, very often I ask, so what are you already measuring? And I just use that. Yeah, sometimes I would just, last month I was consulting for a company and I said, you need to use the Q12. I thought, that would really be the right one. That's why so I'm thinking about it now. But the key is measurement. And once you measure, you ask, okay, so how can I change these scores? Improve relationships, reduce loneliness, improve engagement, or whatever it is that you're measuring. So what you're doing is just right. You're measuring. And then you're having that conversation.
Thank you, Tal. And there is a related question, but not for organizations, but somebody is asking if it is possible to apply the same tools to be happier during a period of loneliness and achieve greater happiness. So what happens if relationships is such an important predictor of happiness and you are in a lonely place?
Yeah. Do whatever you can to meet people, to interact with people. Go out to, again, old-fashioned parties, not online parties. Join a club, whether it's a dance club or what. You know that one of the happiest countries in the world is Denmark. Why? Well, one of the reasons is that Denmark, 93% of the population are members of social clubs. 93%. So almost all people are either members of a sports club or of a golf club or of a chess club. It doesn't matter. But what does it mean when you're a member of a club? You have interactions. The biggest, most significant strength of Latin America as a region, whether you're talking Colombia or Mexico or any of the other countries, the biggest strength is the social relationships. And unfortunately, what's happening in Latin America and around the world is that we are substituting those face-to-face social interactions with online interactions. It just doesn't have the same impact, not even close. So we're experiencing the loneliness pandemic. We, all over the world, are experiencing loneliness because we're substituting the face-to-face interactions with online interactions.
Yeah.
Not enough. And during COVID, there was no other choice. Today we have a choice. Most people, not everyone, but most people do have a choice. And they can get out of their homes, get out of their comfort zone, and meet people.
Yeah. There's no substitution really for face-to-face interaction with others. So make that important. Yeah. Tal, can we take a few questions before we share some information?
Of course.
So, Claudia, por favor.
Primeramente, gracias por existir. Eres una inspiración para nosotros. Yo cuento con un máster en Ciencias de la Felicidad. Eres un referente realmente. Y quiero que me regales un mensaje ya que yo soy promotora de la psicología positiva y la próxima semana voy a dar una plática a los médicos residentes, a los que empiezan y hay un alto índice de suicidio porque por los tratos que se dan, por las largas jornadas y por todas las complicaciones que implica el llegar a la meta. Entonces, pues lo primero que les voy a decir es que la felicidad está en el camino, no propiamente en lo último del camino.
Thank you, Claudia, for doing what you're doing. There's one other thing that I would add when you talk to these doctors. Being a medical doctor, especially in today's world, is very stressful. Maybe 100 years ago, 500 years ago, or 200 years ago, when you were a doctor in your village and, someone who was ill would come in and you would talk to them and you would ask them questions and you'd have maybe a cup of coffee together and then you would give them the prescriptions. Today, doctors don't have that luxury. Right? You come in, sometimes they don't even look at you. They look at the computer screen, they ask you a few questions, give you the prescription, next. And they do it over and over and over again. So they don't get the relationship aspect. So the first thing, ask them, is it possible to slow down? You know what the best predictor of great leadership is? And when I say great leadership, I'm talking about a manager in a bank, I'm talking about a doctor, and I'm talking about a parent. So you know what the number one predictor of extraordinary leadership is? It's not how charismatic you are. It's not how smart you are. It's how well you listen. So doctors, if they have the luxury to take a little bit more time to really listen, that can go a long way. By the way, also in terms of their ability to heal, because people who are listened to are more likely to heal. But not all doctors have that luxury of taking more time. But what they need to do, and this is key, and I've spoken to physicians about it, the key, they must find more time for recovery. Because think about it. Stress in and of itself is not a bad thing. When I go to the gym, I lift weights, I'm putting stress on my muscles. Not a bad thing. In fact, very good thing. It's healthy. I get stronger as a result of putting that stress on my body. It's the same with the mind. Stress is not a bad thing. We grow stronger, more resilient as a result of it. What is the problem? The problem is when I put stress on my muscles and a minute later more stress and more and more. And the following day more and more and more stress. That's when I get injured. That's when I get weaker rather than stronger. The problem, therefore, is not the stress. The problem is that I don't have enough recovery. So if I lift weights and then I have a break, and then I lift more weights and then I have a day off, and then after a day I lift more weights, that's how I grow. So stress without recovery leads to breakdown, to meltdown, to burnout. Whether it's doctor burnout, bankers burnout, or parents burnout. But if you have that same stress and take a little bit of time for recovery, it doesn't have to be major. That recovery helps you grow from that stress. Just like the recovery in the gym helps you grow from the physical stress. So what would that recovery look like for doctors? Every hour or two, take a short break, whether it's to meditate or whether it's to take a few deep breaths or whether it's to go to the gym on a regular basis or whether it's to, have lunch without your phone on. Because when your phone is on and you're having lunch, you're just adding more stress to the equation. Take a day off, really day off. If you can, leave your phone at home. Take those vacations. So if these physicians have more periods of recovery, two things will happen. First of all, they will become happier. The stress won't lead to burnout. The stress will lead to growth. And second, they will actually be better doctors, more productive, more creative, more focused and engaged. So it's a win-win all around. Recovery for physicians is key because most of them in most parts of the world are experiencing burnout.
Thank you, Tal.
Muchas gracias.
De nada.
Alfredo, por favor.
Mucho gusto, un placer saludarlo. Yo hago parte de una red latinoamericana de estudio e intervención en felicidad y bienestar, así que sería muy valioso si algún día pudiéramos tener, aunque fuera una pequeña charla con usted. Y también hemos publicado un par de libros que ahora más tarde las personas que de pronto quieran obtener estos libros pueden escribirme, voy a colocar mi correo para que me escriban. Son libros que se pueden bajar de la Universidad Nacional Abierta a Distancia en Colombia, Internet. Y allí en esta universidad tenemos un coloquio sobre bienestar y felicidad cada 2 años y de ahí surgió esta red. Entonces hay muchas preguntas que surgen, pero en este momento mi pregunta tiene que ver con la importancia, ¿qué considera de la importancia de mirar la influencia que tienen las redes sociales en el problema del bienestar? Es decir, esa mirada donde se crean como unos mundos irreales y donde de pronto hay que trabajar con gobiernos, con sociedades, con familias, porque estamos viendo que en muchos países están prohibiendo a los adolescentes este manejo. Entonces, ese punto de vista, pues creo que no es solo una cosa de gobierno, sino de múltiples factores que tienen que ver, pero creo que un punto de vista como el suyo sería muy importante que nos lo comentara en este momento. Entonces, pues
Gracias, Alfredo.
esa es la pregunta. Gracias.
Yeah. So first of all, Alfredo, thank you for the work that you're doing and the work that your colleagues are doing. We need much more of it. Now, when it comes to social media, in moderation, it's not necessarily a bad thing. There are some very good uses to social media. You know, I've met people whom I hadn't seen for years thanks to social media. I had a best friend when I was between the age of 9 and 12, and we went our separate ways, different countries, and we met again thanks to social media when I was in my 50s. However, when social media replaces face-to-face interactions, that's when the problem begins. When we become addicted to social media, to those likes, that's a problem. And the question is not how do we eliminate social media? That's not going to happen. That train has left the terminal. The question is, how do we create the boundaries around it? And let me give you an example. So if I ask people on this call today, whether they are addicted to the phone, the overwhelming majority of people would say yes. I check messages, I check social media, I check the news, whatever, constantly. So we know that we're addicted. It's not a problem of awareness. And then if I ask the second question, how many people here do you think go to sleep with their phones right next to them? Most people here would say yes. Most people. Now, so we know we're addicted to it, and yet we go to bed with it right next to us. Imagine if I'm addicted to alcohol. And I realized that it's not helping me, it's hurting me. Would I go to bed with a bottle of tequila right next to me? Of course not. I would keep it away from me so that I'm not tempted to touch it. If I really want to get rid of the alcoholism, I wouldn't even bring it home. And yet we go to bed with our smartphones. That's just one example of where we can and should create this break, this barrier between ourselves and technology, social media being one of them. Today, there are apps that can shut off different apps at specific hours. You want to be on social media because that's how you interact with people? Give yourself a window of 30 minutes a day to be on social media. You want 45 minutes? Fine. You want 30 minutes every other day? Even better. But create limits. Otherwise, it takes over our life. Because we're checking all the time. And the same, by the way, applies for many people with news. For me, I wasn't addicted to social media. I don't have social media. I don't know my Facebook password. I communicate messages on Facebook. I communicate messages on Instagram. But I don't go on Instagram. I don't go on Facebook, Twitter. Why? Because I know that if I go on, I won't get off. I'm not that strong to be able to resist it. Most people are not strong enough to resist it. But I was a news junkie, and I used to look at the news all the time. So I put an app in where until after lunch, I don't have access to internet. I do my work. I read my books. And in the afternoon, I check the news. And you know what? If the world comes to an end overnight, someone will tell me, even if I don't check the news. The key here, Alfredo, is creating those boundaries for us, for our children, in schools, in the workplace. Otherwise, we'll be abused by technology. It's a powerful force.
Yeah. Thank you, Tal. So
Muchas
let's, gracias,
Arlen,
Alfred.
perdón, un comentario para la compañera Claudia Lorena del Rocío Dorantes. Hay una compañera en la Universidad de Puebla que tiene un programa para estudiantes de medicina donde ha trabajado sobre felicidad. Entonces, de pronto después podemos contactar para que pueda hacer esa llave. Ahí está, puse el correo para que pusieran el asunto de los libros. Por favor, colocar asunto libros en el chat. Entonces también me puede escribir a ese correo y conversamos. Gracias.
Alfredo, yo no veo en el chat. ¿Lo puedes compartir en el chat general? Déjame ver, porque yo no te veo, ¿eh?
¿Dónde
Si lo
está?
puedes
Aquí,
volver a
aquí.
escribir. Y vamos a darle, let's take
Sí,
the
vamos aquí.
last question with Dina, please.
Ahí está, ¿ya se ve el correo?
Ahora sí.
Ya, gracias.
Hello, Tal.
Gracias.
Hi, everybody. Tal, I am very happy to see you again. I don't know if you remember me. I saw you in our last Congress with my cousin, Sonia Arakelian. So it's a pleasure to see you again here. Always learning from you. Right now, my question is geared towards aging well. At this point in my life, I am starting to approach different industries to share my knowledge and my experience of certain strategies of how to deal with aging well and create a program that will help collaborators start like creating a parallel project before they leave their their present responsibilities. And I'm finding industries hiring several counseling, and at the end, when I work hand in hand with them and we sit down and talk about how to apply these strategies with the collaborators, I feel that, and I sense that the leaders are quite afraid of opening this type of information because they're not very much aware of the response of how the collaborators are going to respond, because some of them are almost 2 years before they leave their responsibilities, but most of them are 6 months away from leaving their security space. So I've been working a lot in presenting projects, but at the same time, I have not been accepted because there's a lot of noise inside the industry that is not allowing me to proceed. So I would like, if possible, for you to share which would be like 3 important messages that I should share with the leaders to be much more convincing, because I am passing through the same process. I'm also aging well, so and it's been a little bit frustrating for me, and applying positive psychology is one of my banners, but at the end, I think that we need to sensitize and we need to prepare the leaders to really accept this challenge, because at the same time they're opening doors, but they don't feel sure, and they don't feel safe about how to deal with the collaborators before they leave, and there's becoming anger inside the industries. So what would be your suggestions?
Dina, I need to understand better. So your goal or your struggle is to what? To teach programs on aging well in organizations?
To accompany
Yeah.
the collaborators that are going to leave the industry, yes, and create a strategy or a plan for them to leave, yes, with a parallel project to construct another project. But at the same time, the industry is trying to give me the support that I need, or the doors. They're opening, virtual sessions with them. But at the same time, when I propose these type of strategies or programs, they do not land, because they're afraid of how the collaborators are going to react. So I need to be much more convincing of that this is going to be helpful for the collaborators.
Es
Who
para
are the
los,
colla-
es
Yeah,
para
I
los que
don't.
es para los que se van porque se jubilan.
Exactamente.
It's for the employees that leave because they have reached their last stage in the company,
it.
because
Because they're about to retire?
exactly.
It's a retirement program. That's the word I was
Okay.
missing. It's a
Okay.
retirement.
Yeah,
Good.
how to
Now,
help people that are going to retire. Yes.
now I understand.
Thank you.
Thank you. So there are a few things to keep in mind. First of all, when you approach a company, the best way to sell a program is by highlighting the scientific aspect of it. Meaning, you're not just there to tell them, this is what I think would be nice, but you're there to tell them, this is what the research is showing. And I want to share with you and your employees some of the research to help them transition better into retirement. So that's the foundation. You're talking science. Now, what is the science that you want to share? When you look at people who are retiring, you can really divide them into 2 groups with very, very different outcome. One group of retirees, even though they've been looking forward to retirement for maybe 20 years, just fantasizing about retirement, once they retire, in no time, sometimes within a month, sometimes it's 2 years, they lose their health and their vitality. Sometimes even their life. Soon after retirement, even though they've been looking forward to it for so many years. That's group one. Group two goes to the other extreme. They flourish. They thrive. They're sometimes happier than they'd ever been before. What's the difference between the two groups? The one that drops and the one that rises. The difference is usually sense of meaning and purpose. Are you able to find something that's important to you, that's meaningful to you? I think about my mom was a teacher for over 40 years, a legendary teacher, really extraordinary. Found her work very meaningful. Her students loved her. And she retired 10 years ago. And as happy as she was while being a teacher, she's as happy, if not happier now. Why? Because her meaning was work. Now her meaning shifted. And what she's doing now, spending time with her children and grandchildren, of course, is very meaningful to her. And of all things, she became a matchmaker. Why? I don't know, but she did. And she said to me, this is I think it's the only work where I'm actually losing money rather than making money. Why? Because she does it as a volunteer, but then she's invited to the wedding and she has to buy a present. So she's paying money rather than getting money. And she's so happy doing it. It's meaningful for her. And yet there are so many people who say, I just can't wait to retire and whatever, play golf or watch TV. But that's not enough. Some people it is, but for many people it's not. So you need to help them find a sense of meaning and purpose in life. 1. 2, there's research by Becca Levy, Levy, from Yale University on perception of aging. And what she finds is that if you see aging as a problem, as something negative, you're more likely to have a negative experience aging. Whereas if you see, okay, yeah, I'm not the same as I was when I was 30, but so what? I've gained so much as well in terms of wisdom, in terms of the ability to accept, in terms of my relationships. I've gained so much. And you have a positive perception of aging, you're much more likely to actually experience positive aging. So the perception becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Wow.
How do you change that perception? You ask positive questions such as, what is the upside for you? What have you learned? What have you gained? Let's focus on the positive. What are the positive things about aging? So get them to explore these. Third and final thing that I'm going to say, are you familiar with the book, The Blue Zones? All right. This is, Dina, this is the first book, homework, that you're getting and reading cover to cover.
Okay.
It's the book about the people around the world who have lived the longest, not just the longest, also the best. So both in terms of quantity of life as well as quality of life. By the way, not just for Dina, for everyone here who's present. It's a very important book about living well, physically
nice.
and mentally. It's based on real research, science. So when you come to them with a few key ideas and you tell them, these ideas can make a difference in the life of a 65-year-old who's about to retire, but it can also make a difference in the life of a 40-year-old. And there's scientific evidence for it. They're more likely, doesn't guarantee, but they're more likely to open up to you.
Thank you, Tal.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you for doing what you're doing.
Tal, I want to invite you to explore a different area of your work that I would love for you to share with everyone else. But there is just one question that they have insisted me a lot if I could, ask you this question, which is how can you have a sense of, happiness, and how can you deal with your emotions when you have a family member that is going through a very difficult time? And that, of course, has a negative impact on you.
Of course.
What are some suggestions that you have? And this is the last question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So first of all, it's difficult, and there is no way around it. If a family member, whether it's a child or your partner or a parent, is struggling, then you empathize with it. We're human beings. People we care about who are struggling affects us. The question is, what do we do with it? In traditional Buddhist thought, and later on in modern research, there is talk about two levels of suffering. The first level of suffering is automatic. It's natural. It's basically unavoidable. For example, when someone close to me is struggling, I feel the pain. When I open the news and I see, war and suffering, even if it's on the other side of the world, I'll experience pain. It's called empathy. And, unless we're psychopaths, we have it. So that's inevitable. But then there is a second level. And the second level comes when I reject the first. So if I say to myself, how come, I can't be happy right now? Or why am I suffering? As soon as I question, as soon as I do not give myself the permission to experience that emotion, that first level goes to the next level. In contrast, when I simply experience that pain and I say, yeah, it's painful. Now, what can I do? How can I help? Then it stays there or even goes lower because I'm acting. It's when I fight the pain that it actually grows. In the words of Carl Jung, the Swiss philosopher, what you resist persists. What you resist persists. And what you accept and embrace, that just leaves as it came. So the key is first to accept the emotion. It is difficult. And second, to ask, so concretely, what can I do to help that person? Because also when I act, when I try to help, just that in and of itself takes me away from the helplessness to the helpfulness, from the hopelessness to the hopefulness.
Thank you, Tal. And last but not least, I know a lot of people here are very interested in the certificate in happiness studies or pursuing either the master's or the PhD, but the certificate is beginning this month. And instead of me sharing all the details about it, I wanted for you to say, why is this an important program, and what is the impact that you have seen your students go through with the program?
Yeah, so I'll say just a couple of things. First of all, the material that is covered as part of the certificate is fantastic. But Arlene, that's very easy. Because how difficult can it be to create a great program when you draw on Lao Tzu and Aristotle and Marty Seligman and Sonia Lubomírsky and Barbara Fredrickson? Easy. There's so much great material in positive psychology, in the science of happiness, in the philosophy of happiness. that we draw from, the easy part. The more challenging part is creating a supportive community. And that is one thing that we have. As part of the Happiness Studies Academy, when you join, first of all, you join for life. Again, I always say, we don't force you to stay for life, but you're welcome for life. So once you join, you go through the certificate program and you have access to again, great material, easy. You have access to that material for the year and for the rest of your life. You have access to the weekly live webinars for the rest of you, well, as long as we're around. So we have students or fellow journeyers coming to the weekly certificate, even though to the weekly webinar, even though they graduated 4 years ago. They still come every Thursday or whenever they want to. And we have retreats where we get together. And some people come to every retreat. We have them a couple of times a year. And some people come to, a retreat that's nearby. And we had retreats in Mexico City and Cancun and Cartagena and Shanghai and Finland and New Jersey. Literally all over the world. They're amazing. Amazing experiences where we support one another. And then you also gain knowledge and understanding how you can become a better coach, a better parent, a better manager, a better physician, and of course, a happier individual who can also help others become happier. So there are so many benefits to being part of that community. So I co-founded the Happiness Studies Academy, I think 8 years ago. If you had asked me 8 years ago what my involvement in the Happiness Studies Academy would be, I would have said, I'm going to stay around for about 3 years. That's about my attention span. Create the programs, make sure there are other teachers who are doing it, and then I would have moved on and do something else. That has basically been my pattern throughout my life. I'm not going anywhere. My involvement with the Happiness Studies Academy is only becoming deeper and deeper. Again, every Thursday, I've done it for the past 8 years. And as I know, I can see some faces, some people who are there every week or almost every week. I'm as excited about it today as I was when it first started. It's a wonderful, wonderful community.
It's an amazing community, and I think it's especially important to belong to one of these communities today, given the situation that we're living in. And there is a club, an alumni club, un club de alumnos y exalumnos creado para ayudar a que la gente aprenda cómo impactar, to help people learn how to make greater their impact in happiness studies, how to teach. And right now you can still join, and it would be a pleasure to have you in our community. And if you have any questions about it, you can send us an email. Here, I'm going to write it. So that we can give you all the information. Escríbanos and stop waiting, dejen de esperar. Mucha gente nos pregunta año tras año, es que ya quiero y ya casi, y de verdad, no dejes para mañana algo que te puede servir desde hoy para construir una vida mucho más feliz. So, Tal, I don't know if there is any last words that you would like to share with our community, or if maybe there are some questions about the certificate program that you can answer. I know Marcela has her hand up, pero si tienes una pregunta sobre la certificación o la maestría, con mucho gusto. Yeah, Tal. In the meantime, yeah.
Yeah, just it's wonderful to be here with you. You know, I visit Mexico and Colombia and Chile and Latin America a few times a year, and it's always such a pleasure, such joy to visit because of the energy, because of the relationships, and as I said, this is the most important strength of the region, and also it's the most important human strength.
Mm-hmm.
And in that respect, in many ways, I see Latin America as the stronghold of relationships. We can't lose that because we're losing an important part of our humanity if we do.
Yeah, you are right. And we're very happy to have you in Mexico and all over Latin America, Tal, because you add a lot of value to our lives. And I know this program changed my life as well, and I know it has changed the lives of many people around the world. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here tonight, for sharing with us your life journey and your experience, and also you were too humble by saying it's easy to create the programs. Those programs are amazing, and it's not easy to create that level of content that you have created. So I think it is really an amazing gift for all of us. So thank you a lot. And I know Sandy raised her hand, and yeah, Sandy, por favor.
Si me dejas decir unas pequeñas palabras sobre la comunidad, Arlene, para todos los que están aquí escuchando, es una comunidad que pues hay gente de 100 países, pero tenemos una comunidad muy activa en Latinoamérica, en Colombia, en Perú, en México, hay gente de todo tipo de culturas. Es una experiencia, la verdad, súper enriquecedora. Hay mucho apoyo por parte de la comunidad, tenemos actividades todas las semanas, entonces lo que dice Tal, el curso en sí es maravilloso, el contenido es increíble, pero la comunidad te da como este sustento, este empuje, nos aprendemos unos de otros, y tenemos muchas iniciativas que surgen de los mismos estudiantes y graduados, entonces pues la invitación es, yo de verdad no he visto ningún programa en el mundo que tenga una comunidad tan fuerte y tan activa como tiene HSA. Entonces, bueno, también es un valor agregado de tener esta certificación y de verdad se los recomiendo muchísimo.
Todo el material está traducido al español, todos los videos están subtitulados, todas las lecturas las encuentran también en español, y los webinars de Tal se traducen al español también. Y los miércoles hay un webinar en español cada 15 días conmigo, donde también pues hablamos sobre temas muy vinculados pues a nuestra parte del mundo. Así que bueno, es muy, 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 muy bonita y muy importante en estos días. Shula, si puedes compartir la liga, que están preguntando cómo pueden nuevamente incluir. Y bueno, I know it's very late for you, Tal. I know it's late. I want to thank you again. Gracias, Andy, también. Y gracias a todos por conectarse. Es lindísimo contar con ustedes en esta comunidad y saber que más gente estamos involucrados en hacer de este mundo uno más feliz y uno con más contacto social y emocional de gente positiva. Así que muchas gracias, Tal. Thank you again so much.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for being here.
Gracias.
Hope to see you soon.
Hasta
Bye-bye.
luego.
Bye, gracias.
Bye.